Glad to be with you today. And my name is Tom Koch. I'm the mayor of Quincy. I'm in my 13th year.
So from the start of COVID-19 till now, how has COVID-19 affected yourself, your family members, and your friends?
Well, it's certainly been an interesting ride um, in my vocation, if you will. I'm usually out every night of the week and weekends at events, fundraisers, games, banquets. So to have everything shut down was really quite an adjustment for me because I am a retail politician. I do like to interact with folks. So that was a big adjustment. There's always a silver lining, though, right? I mean, it allowed me to have more time with my family. It allowed me to actually get out and do more walking and exercise, and I've lost like 25 pounds, so that's been a positive. And it's allowed me to have more conversations at home around the table with. I've got 3 adult children. One's in the Marine Corps, but the other 2 are still at home. So it's allowed us more quality time together as a family. So that's been a positive.
Okay. How do you spend a normal day during COVID-19?
Well, there's nothing normal anymore. But my day is always very interesting. I try to drive the day, but many days the day drives me because of the various things that come up. You know, we're a city of 100,000. We've got just some 3,000 city employees. I have all the department heads I work with on a regular basis. Now, because of the COVID, the emphasis on the health side of things has really been strong. Ruth Jones, my Commissioner of Public Health, we talk very frequently. We go over cases. We talk about funding. We talk about ways to, if there's a hot spot, how can we eradicate that? She gives me guidance in the health side of things, and we certainly, I was doing it every day. Now I'm doing it every couple of days. I do a video where we share with the public where we are as a city, what's going on with the numbers. And on the other side, with some of the CARES Act money that come through, I spend a lot of time with my Director of Municipal Finance. We have somebody that handles our federal monies, state monies, and we've been getting reimbursement for a number of outlays, if you will, that we have put forth to help mitigate how this has hit our community. So for example, we're buying 7,000 Chromebooks for our school system, 1,000 laptops for the teachers. That money is coming out of some of the federal COVID money. We have bought all kinds of PPE, masks and shields and gowns and gloves for schools and staff, DPW, police, fire. We worked with a number of the nonprofits like the YMCA. We're able to use that facility to spread the homeless out, if you will, so they're not in close contact, so that we could mitigate, again, the spread of the disease. So we did all kinds of rental assistance programs and business assistance programs. So we're trying to mitigate the effects of this as best we can to protect the economy, but of course also to protect people's health.
Have you learned anything new about yourself, society, or anything in general during this time?
I've learned I have to be more patient because, as I say, that my schedule was crazy before that, and I was usually running from here to there and meeting to meeting. Now, we never shut government down, so I was in the office every day, even weekends. We're still working, doing a lot of Zoom call meetings like this. A table that I have in my office, a conference table, which normally seats 12, now seats 4. So our meetings are much smaller. We spread out. For those are the meetings that we do have to have. But patience is certainly one that I've learned I've got to do better at through this, and it forces one to do that. It also has pushed some things off that normally would be tackling certain city issues, and everything was kind of, I shouldn't say everything because we're still doing road work, pipe work, soil work, but those other projects, those special projects we were looking to put on the table, kind of held back a little bit to see how the economy is going to react to this over the next few months. So it's every day is interesting, that's for sure, and every day is a gift. So we'll continue to migrate our way through it and navigate our way through it, and continue to be as patient as we can.
Okay. Have your initiatives impacted our community? Like, how have your initiatives impacted our community?
Some of the initiatives that we've created. Certainly, I'll give you one, for example, early on when this thing first broke and the restaurants were being closed, right away you think about the dishwashers and the waitresses and cooks and people that live paycheck to paycheck. So I immediately went to the Affordable Housing Trust and we got $2 million approved. We put a program out there, which the Chamber of Commerce helped us to really get the money on the street, if you will, so that folks that were in that category could apply for a grant to help them pay their mortgage or their rent. In most cases, it was rent because these folks couldn't afford to buy a home. So we helped almost 400 individuals get through 3 months worth of rent period of time. So that was huge. And then we took some federal money on the business side and created a grant program for businesses under a certain size because a lot of the big businesses had already tapped into some of the federal money. But a lot of the businesses that kind of fell between the cracks, some of the mom and pop stores, were closed down and they still have to pay a mortgage or they have to pay rent. So we provided grants up to $10,000 each on those. And we managed to, I think, about 380 different businesses we were able to help with that one. So those two programs I'm very proud of. We have a great city. We have a very engaged community. I have colleagues in government who take the role seriously. The city council has been terrific. Our school committee's been terrific to work with. Our legislative delegation. Congressman Steve Lynch checks in with me periodically. I speak to the governor on a regular basis, lieutenant governor. And kind of what's nice about it, it's something like this is everyone comes together to work together to provide the best we possibly can under the circumstances to keep our economy going, to make sure people aren't losing their homes, to help people sustain their jobs. And, the initiative we did with our license board, which opened up outdoor seating at a minimum requirement of the operations. Normally, this would take months to apply and get approvals. This was a one-sheet application that was turned around in like hours so that we could get our business back in operation again to sustain them and their livelihood. So there's been a lot of decisions made on the ground day to day. For example, we booked hotel rooms early on. We took a block at the Marriott for any of our first responders. If they should get sick, they could quarantine in a hotel room up there without having to perhaps infect their family, loved ones at home. Some of them are obviously taking care of their parents, or some folks that may be sick that you don't want to obviously spread the COVID to. So a lot of things like that, just making decisions like that each and every day. And it reminds us, I guess, in a sense, too, on the spiritual side of things, what's important. To some degree, I know in my life, it was like I was on a treadmill, just, you're going constantly. And do you ever take the old saying, do you ever take time to smell the roses? And I think, and something like this kind of forces one to smell the roses. And that side of things isn't bad.
Do you think there will be long-lasting effects on our community from COVID-19?
That's an excellent question. That's something I grapple with on a regular basis when I meet with some of my department heads and my director of municipal finance. He's an economist by training, and he loves to do models and projections and all, but there's no models for this. You go back to the Spanish flu of 1918, there's a lot of data on the health side, but there's not really any modeling on the economy side. So this is a little tricky. It's kind of uncharted waters that we're in. So, again, we're tracking how the revenues are doing. Obviously, the revenues are down. Our state revenue from the state, they help with local aid. That's projected to be down. Are people going to continue to buy new cars? When people buy new cars, that, excise tax that people pay comes into the general fund of our city. So there's all these pieces. Obviously, the meals tax in the hotels that comes into the general fund is going to be way off. The hotel tax, which comes in to help us, is way off as the hotel business has been off. So we're watching it closely, almost daily, to see how we're tracking. I made the decision not to do any cutbacks or layoffs during this year. And it's going to be a tough nut to get through that. But I didn't want to add to the burden of putting people on the street, adding to the burden of more people seeking unemployment, not being able perhaps to pay their bills and so forth. So everybody's working and working very hard at it. So we're still looking at the numbers, and I'm more concerned about next year's budget because this year's budget was already kind of baked in. When we do the budget next spring, City budget goes July 1 to June 30th. All the city contracts are up. I've asked all the unions if they would take a 0 increase in wages so that we can help us get through this difficult time for 1 year. But it's going to be probably be a month-to-month thing as far as assessing it and where we'll be. But as I said, I'm a little bit more concerned about next year because it's now the impact of this year with all of those revenues being off that affects next year's budget. So it's tricky. I'm hoping for the best, but we're preparing for what may not be the best.
So how do you feel about COVID-19?
Well, it's interesting because it's kind of a battle we're in, but it's an invisible enemy that we're dealing with, which is very frustrating. And the other frustration is if you put the news on one night, they're recommending you do this. 2 nights later, they're recommending something different. So it's been very frustrating, but I really feel for the families that have had to deal with this, where they've lost loved ones. I mean, you have people in nursing homes that family members could not visit because of the COVID, and then the person may have died, so they died without a family member by their side. I mean, that's tough stuff. That's stuff that takes years to heal from. So as much as I may complain about not being able to see people like I'd like to see people, the reality is there's been 134 people in Quincy that we've lost to the COVID, and behind that number is an individual, is a family, friends, our neighbors that have been affected by this. So certainly my heart goes out to those folks. That part of the COVID makes you angry, but life isn't always easy. The science community has talked about these potential matters happening every few years, and I think this coming fall and winter is going to be very challenging because of the natural flu and pneumonia season, with the COVID still on top of us with no vaccine on the street quite yet. And so COVID-19 is something that we'll remember for a long time. Hopefully, when we get it behind us, we can look back, maybe laugh at some of this, with the understanding that this had a tremendous impact on a lot of individual lives and families, and of course, then the impact on the economy.
So how do you manage to decide if this will be like a positive outcome or a negative outcome to our community from all your decisions?
Well, it's funny. I had some great mentors in life, and one of my mentors, I remember saying to me when I got first elected, you're getting paid, you're in a job that you have to make decisions every day. Sometimes you may not make the best decision looking back at it, but you need to make decisions. And I think when we look back at this, maybe a year or two out from now, it is my hope that with the information we had available each and every day, that we made the best decisions we possibly could, and that we didn't wait, we didn't hesitate. I didn't wait for the governor or federal government to tell us what we should be doing. We moved quickly to protect the homeless. We moved quickly to do the rent program for individuals. We moved quickly on the business program. We moved quickly on the PPEs. We moved quickly on buying Chromebooks for the school side. We didn't hesitate in making those decisions, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm grateful for the incredible team I have around me of staff and department heads, and again, my colleagues in government who all kind of were weighing in, and certainly in a good way, not being a pest, because there are a lot of answers that nobody could find. I mean, I guess I should say a lot of questions without answers is probably the better way to say it during this process. But making decisions on the ground was important. It was imperative. And we said we got to worry about the money later. And that's what we've been doing. Now we are getting federal and state reimbursements for some of these decisions we made, which is good and will help us recover from this economically. But we'll continue to make those decisions. And as the old saying, the umpire, call best and strike, balls and strikes as best you see it. And hopefully, overall for the world, that the vaccine will come soon and that we can all breathe a little bit easier going forward.
So from all the initiatives that you've already started, do you think any of them will just stay after COVID-19, like continue on?
Well, I think that everyone's taken a step back now and looked at, okay, how are we going to do things going forward? For example, like talking to a local business, a longtime business here, and a lot of their employees have been working out of the house. And he told me that that has worked out very well. You know, we may not bring some of them back to the office. Now that has an implication. So if a lot of the businesses do that, if people staying home, I guess that helps in the traffic situation, driving to work in the morning. But those coffee shops and sandwich shops and other stores that depend on that kind of activity are going to get affected by that. So all these decisions that people will be making going forward have great implications on how we live. I mean, that's just one example. You know, the whole school situation, you know, going forward and how we're going to, you know, mitigate 6 feet distancing in classrooms and schools. And we're looking at a hybrid program for that. Even after the fact, I think we're going to forever see hand sanitizer on desks, on hallways, on building entrances. So a lot of those types of habits that are probably good habits to get into changing will stay with us. I hope we don't have to wear a mask every day for forever. When I get out and walk at night, I'm usually not around anyone, so I don't wear the mask when I'm out walking. Carry it with me in case I run into somebody. But so I think there's habits that are changing now that will be forever with us. You know, the old days of the handshake, is that going to be something of the past? I hope not. You know, people hugging one another. You know, I guess some of the changes and some of the hygiene habits that we're developing are going to help us with just everyday life of the flu and pneumonia that's out there on a regular basis anyway. So much remains to be seen. We're learning as we go, but I do think there's going to be a lot of changed habits for a long time.
This is just a fun question. Do you think, are you like excited when Corona is like over?
Well, I'm in a very unique job as, you know, mayor of a city our size, with all the activity that we have in a city and all the programming and departments and services we provide. It's never dull. It is never dull. It is never boring. And, you know, when I first got elected, 2 years in, a year and a half in, we had the financial collapse that was the worst since the Great Depression. We kind of got through that. We had, in the city's history, we had the worst flooding in West Quincy in March of 2010. We were taking people out of their homes in boats. We broke all kinds of records. In February 2015, we broke all the snow records, and the cities broke records as far as the amount of money we spent to remove that snow. So when the COVID hit, it was something new. And it, you know, when you're plowing snow, removing snow, you see it, you remove it, you move it, and you spend money on it to do that. But COVID, it's that invisible enemy. You don't know how to attack it. So as a community, we're dealing like everybody else with the best practices that have been put forward to try to get through this. I kiddingly say to people, the only thing left for me to deal with is if the locusts come in biblical proportions like you read about in scripture. And I kid about it, but it's not funny because you see parts of Africa and India that are dealing with billions of locusts that are eating crops and you know, really having a great effect on the food chain over there. So it's an interesting role I'm in. COVID is certainly a real curveball that was thrown our way in how we deal with providing local services. You know, when are we going to be open the libraries up again fully? When are we going to be open up the senior center again fully for people? We don't know. So a lot of these decisions again will be made when we are comfortable that we have all the best science and data with us to make these decisions, so that we are protecting people's health and not adding to the problem. So I hope that in the near future that we can say goodbye to COVID, farewell, adios, au revoir, whatever, good riddance. But in the meantime, we're just going to have to continue to deal with it.
Do you have anything else you would want to add on to say to our community?
Well, I try to communicate on a regular basis with our community so they know what's going on in their backyard. I think that has been well received. I also have communicated to everyone that we're not stopping moving forward on infrastructure and replacing water mains, sewer mains, road reconstruction, park work, park reconstruction, because all these things are important to continue on. And by the way, they're providing jobs. You know, there's a great chart that shows, you know, when you talk about, it's something simple and not sexy as replacing a water main. You know, you're paying an engineering company to do the design. You put it out to bid. the pipe maker is making money, keeping people employed, making the pipe. The company that delivers the pipe to the site, the trucking company, they're employing people that deliver that, and they're making money off of that. So you can do the matrix, if you will, and how all these decisions have a great effect on our economy. So I felt it was very important to keep things going as best we could. But the most important aspect was try to communicate with everybody. And I really feel badly about the senior population, because I normally would be down at the Kennedy Center, our senior center, on a regular basis, seeing seniors, interacting with them. I would normally be in every senior building in our city at least once or twice a year, putting on a dinner, saying hello, seeing what's on their mind. So that's all changed. And I don't know when we're going to be able to get back to that. So I'm actually going to be doing a communication to all our seniors in our city with some kind of a bag, if you will, with some things in it, with some recommendation, maybe some masks, some goodies in there to say to them that, we're thinking of you, you're important to us, and we're here if you need us. So that's been probably the hardest thing for me, is how isolated the senior population's been, and we're trying to communicate as best we can. And as you probably know, they're not as much into the technology like we're on this Zoom today. So it's harder for them when they're just reading the newspaper or maybe watching something on cable. They're not so much into the social media tools that we're able to use, that we're able to connect with the other generation. So it's been an interesting ride. I'm sure it'll continue to be an interesting ride, and we're going to continue the best we can to make it as safe for the people of this city going forward. And every decision we make, it's the health and safety of the residents first. Economic is second, and we'll continue to prioritize in that regard.
Have you tried implementing technology to the seniors, like teaching?
Yes, we have, and there are some that are tuning in. I do different shows from some watch the old cable network, so we do shows on cable, or we share our videos on cable, and some listen to the cable in the morning. They just put the sound on, so I'm on at least once a week in the morning, communicating through that. We do the videos that we put up on social media, Facebook, and all the other platforms that we can. And then we are seeing more seniors engaging in some of those. I think they've been forced. I talk about me being forced to make changes. To some degree, they've been forced, as we all have. Like this Zoom, all my department heads, this was all new to them, but they've been forced to use the latest technology really to communicate. So there's probably more of them that are learning a lot more about social media and using it as best they can than there certainly were 6 months ago. So, we'll continue to do mailings. We'll continue to do the social media. We'll do the cable stuff. We do the print media as well. But as you know, the seniors still look at the print media, but the print media is becoming less and less for folks your age, for example. So we try to use every tool we can to communicate. And of course, we still answer the phones in the office. We still answer emails. People should always be comfortable in calling our office if they need some assistance in any way.